rental customer of mine damaged one of my vehicles, refused to pay, avoided service for several weeks, and then tried to game the system. Luckily, though, the judge didn't care about any of that. And in the end, the judge actually ended up giving me a default judgment because the renter actually didn't show up to court. So I just want to share my experience with you guys and give you guys some tips and tricks that may help you out if you ever have to experience something like this. So I run a private rental car business, and the damaged vehicle that was returned back to us had quarter panel damage, and it also looked like the renter had driven through maybe some bushes or some brush or something because there was fine scratches all over the vehicle, in addition to them putting like some commercial glue or something on the passenger side front fender. Why, I don't know. But in any event, the vehicle came back pretty damaged. And so luckily the renter had insurance. So we make sure that we document everything. When we document everything, we always have before pictures, after pictures. We also have repair estimates. And we always do our best to try and resolve this before we ever have to get to court, because court really takes up time, effort, and energy. In addition, you're not necessarily making money when you go to court. You're more so trying to recoup money for the time and effort that you're putting in. So here's what the problem was. The renter actually had insurance on the vehicle, and his insurance approved the claim. However, in this situation, it was for reimbursement, meaning that he would have to pay the claim first, and then his insurance company would refund him back that money after they've paid us. Now, I don't know how long it usually takes for a reimbursement company to pay back their insurer, but that's where the breakdown began. And the renter never heard of that or wasn't familiar with that process before. And it's similar to a lot of these credit card companies that insure people and a lot of these cut rate insurance policies out here. They're really just reimbursement companies where they'll put liability insurance on a vehicle, get it on the road, and then they're just going to come out of pocket to cover any damages that happen. Just so happened in our situation, the damage was about $6,000. And so once the renter found out that he would have to pay that money up front, that's when we stopped hearing from him, and he started ghosting us. So this is where things got very, very, very interesting. Once the case was filed against my customer, he didn't want to show up at all anymore. He didn't want to answer emails, because I usually use a claim management company. So once we were ghosted, it became a matter of legal action now. And so in the legal proceedings, we would service him. I actually had to use two servicers because the first servicer, they didn't want any parts of the claim any longer. They said, we're done. We're not going to serve this guy because he was threatening one of the agents. And so this particular agent was an older gentleman. He was close to like 80 years old, and he still wanted to be active in the community. And so obviously an 80-year-old person is not going to want to get into any physical altercation when it's not a life or death situation. So they decided that this wasn't the case that they were going to take on any longer. So I ended up having to hire a second server. Now that second server, those guys, they liked hunting people down. They liked chasing people. They liked stalking people, for lack of a better term. They would sit outside your house, sit outside your business, and they were on it. I love them. I will always use them for those difficult to find renters. So what's funny though is the renter actually was having, once we would serve him, the renter was having his family members do what's called a motion. And in those motions, they would quash the service that we do. And so a quash is Quash. They would quash that motion of service, basically stating that the renter didn't live at that location or the renter didn't work at that location. And the renter ended up having his whole family, his business partner at his business, as well as his employees. They were all in and on it. Everyone was lying. Everyone was saying he didn't work there. Everyone was filling out motions and affidavits and whatnot. So at that point, I figured out and found that I needed some assistance and help in this, because this was a person who was very familiar with the legal side of this, or the laws rather. And it was in my best interest now to get someone else who actually knew those laws just as well and knew how to catch people like this. And that's why I hired that second servicer, because I actually mailed out certified mail to him as well. But all they did was return the sender the mail, obviously. But even in all that though, what the biggest thing that I learned was judges do not reward avoidance. So just because you're avoiding you getting service or you're avoiding the inevitable does not mean that you're going to get away with it. Every delay, every motion, every refusal was essentially a paper trail for me to build and show the judge that, hey, we're doing everything to the letter of the law, but we have someone who's trying to avoid and game the system. And that's something judges in the court system cannot stand, and they do not like that at all. So if you have that type of renter, just stay consistent. I promise you it will work out for you. So eventually proper service was done and we had served my renter his documents. The beautiful thing was my court date had arrived. Now, it took about 2 months and 2 weeks, 2 months and 3 weeks to actually serve my renter. The service agent, they literally served the renter about 4 days before my court date. And the reason I put the court date out so far was because I knew that this renter was going to be difficult to find. I knew that he was going to do and play a bunch of games. And so I wanted to make sure that I was giving enough time to my service agent and to myself to get all my documents and all our proof together so that when we do have our day in court, we can easily prove and show consistently what we've done in the body of work. Now, the beautiful thing about this situation is that my renter, he didn't show up to court, and that's why we ended up winning by default. Now, it does not mean that the case is over with because we got the judgment. The judge entered a default judgment. Now, I know what you're thinking. You won, you got your money, you're good, right? No. So winning and collecting, those are two different things. Winning is one thing, collecting is another thing. So after you've won and you got your judgment, your defendant has an opportunity to appeal or vacate that decision. Now, if they appeal or vacate that decision, that means that they would have to come and show up to court that second time. Now, if they decide not to come to court that second time, what happens is you're going to win again, the default, and now there's no opportunity for them to appeal again. There's no opportunity for them to try and come back and say anything. So make sure that you have your documents for your asset recovery already done. So after you win, what you want to do is you have to wait, and every state's a little bit different, but let's just use a week, for example. You have to wait a week after you get the judgment, and then you can go back to the court and file for asset recovery. And what the asset recovery does is it allows you to send documents to, if you're still in a business, you get to send those documents to their bank or to whoever their lender is, and they will actually start garnishing monies from their bank account to pay you. So if you're suing an individual, what happens is during your asset recovery, you start the process all over again, and you have to serve that individual. And when you serve that individual, they're supposed to come to court. And when they come to court, they have to surrender the bank account statements, any credit card statements, any business they own. They have to share all that information so that you guys can start garnishing wages out of their business or out of their bank accounts. Now, if they decide that they don't want to, that's when the judge will actually put out a warrant for their arrest, and the arrest bail amount will be the amount that your judgment is that they owe you. So they can't get out of jail until they pay that bail amount, and the bail amount should go to you, that amount that was owed to you off of the original judgment. Here are the 5 key lessons I learned in this experience. Lesson number one is paperwork beats emotions. No one cares about how you feel and what you think or anything of that nature. All that matters is, what can you prove? Do you have physical, tangible evidence to support your argument? That's all the judge wants to see. They don't want this long, lengthy conversation and you saying this and that. Can you simply prove to me in a concise manner what you're saying? Lesson number 2, service matters. How you serve and where you serve the defendant matters tremendously. If the service is not conducted correctly, then nothing's going to move and your case will more than likely get thrown out by the judge. So you have different types of service where you can use a sheriff, you can use a private service, or you can use the certified mail, but it must be done to the letter of the law or it's invalid and the judge is going to throw out your case, or the judge is going to say, hey, you need to amend this and show me, because you may have done it correctly, it just wasn't reported correctly. And so you need to show me that you did the proper steps to serve this defendant. Lesson number 3, judges hate games. Yes, judges hate games from both sides. Judges hate games from the plaintiff side. If you're an individual that's trying to game the system, trying to cheat or deceive or get more than you should be allotted, judges do not like that. And judges don't like it from the defendant's side, to where he's trying to duck and dodge service, or he's filing irrelevant motions and just trying to obfuscate and confuse the court. None of that's going to work. All you're going to do is piss the judge off, and she's going to end up favoring not your way. So just make sure you're not playing games and you're doing everything on the up and up. Lesson number 4, and this was a big one. You will hear a lot of people say that small claims does not work. In my opinion, for lesson number 4, small claims works, and small claims works tremendously. But it only works if you have your documents and paperwork in order and everything is clean. You won't even need an attorney, because you've got all your proof and documentation already lined up and it's correct. So make sure you're getting everything you need that's pertinent to your rental on the front end. Lesson number 5. Winning is not collecting. I kind of went over this earlier, but just because you won does not mean you've actually collected the funds. Winning is one thing, collecting is a whole nother strategy. And I may make a video about how you would collect, but essentially, as I stated before, you would need to do an asset recovery to actually collect those funds, because just because you won does not mean that the defendant is now going to pay just because you won. So you almost have to force them to pay. But so far in my experience, most people who lose, they usually just pay because no one wants to be in the court system. And I think that it takes a certain, or shows a certain level of serious and professionalism on your end by taking individuals to court, because then they end up seeing and understanding that you're not playing, you're not joking, you need your money. All right, so listen, if you like this video and you run a car rental business, or you run some type of side hustle, or any business that involves you writing contracts or agreements or anything of that nature, make sure you subscribe, because on my podcast, I like to talk about a lot of my W's, but I also talk about my L's so that it can protect you guys and help you guys out in your ventures, because I know that sometimes it's kind of dark when you're going down that road of entrepreneurship, right? There's no book, there's no video that's going to cover every single thing. So if I could drop any nugget of knowledge that's going to help you guys out there in the internet, I'm all for it. So also do me a solid. If you want to see a video about how to go about collecting your money, just leave me a comment down below, put collections, and I'll make a video about how you could actually go about collecting your money if you have a renter or you've won judgment against a renter and you're trying to get those funds.